Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel for another developer interview. Today I am chatting with Mutantleg, the solo developer of Zortch, an old school style FPS game on Steam for only $5. I've had a chance to play this game and it's one of my favorites of the year, so check out the review I have coming up on the channel soon. Now this interview is going to be a little bit different, as Mutantleg did not feel comfortable using his real voice to do the interview, which I totally respect. So we did the interview via email, and Mutantleg gave me permission to use AI voice in order to read his parts for the interview. So the interview might sound a little bit different, like I'm interviewing an AI, but I really want to share this interview with you guys, so I think it's the best next thing. So hopefully you guys can still enjoy it. And if you need proof that this is actually Mutantleg in the interview, he has said he will comment down below. So make sure after the video you check out that comment, click into his profile, and check out his YouTube channel as well. Alright, let's get into the interview. Alright, Mutantleg, thank you so much for joining me today for this interview. I hope you're doing well.
I am doing well. Thanks for having me.
Alright, awesome. Well, first, let me just congratulate you on your recent release of Zortch on Steam to great reviews. I personally found it to be one of my favorite boomer shooters this year, so I'm really excited to talk to you about it. If you don't mind letting us know a little bit more about your developer history, are you an industry professional or are you a self-taught hobbyist?
Yeah, I am actually a game developer by trade. At least that is what I got my university degree in, but I only worked in the industry for a short time before getting disgruntled by it, and now I make games as a hobby.
Well, I know how that goes. I'm also a former disgruntled industry developer. But instead of dwelling on that, why don't you tell me a little bit about your personal gaming history? What games did you play growing up, and did these games inspire you to get into game development?
I grew up on the DOS games of the 90s, and many of them are my favorites. To be honest, pretty much anything from that era is my favorite. The very first game I ever wanted to create was a Wolfenstein 3D clone, but with Jackrabbit weaponry. But really, when it comes to pursuing game development, it's all my dad's fault, really. He found a game one day called Ken's Labyrinth, and we loaded it up, and Ken's head would spin onto the screen going, "Welcome to my labyrinth." My dad saw that and said, "See, this game was made by a little boy just like you." And the next day he showed me some QBasic commands. I've been sitting in front of the computer ever since.
That's awesome, man. I also had a family member inspire me to get into the gaming industry, so I can totally relate. Now, shifting over to Zortch, you coded your own engine for the game. What made you decide to write a new engine instead of using Unreal or something like that?
It was the other way around, actually. Originally, it was just an engine that was in the works, and I decided I needed an idea for a quick game to test it out, and so Zortch was born. It just took significantly longer than I thought it would to develop.
Ah, okay, I see. So when you sat down to create a game for your engine, did you have a plan in mind, or did you just start going for it? Because, and please don't take this the wrong way, I love the wackiness of Zortch, but it does seem a bit all over the place.
No, yeah, you're right. I just wanted to make an FPS game, and that was pretty much the only plan. I had no clue whatsoever on how to make one, so I just kind of mishmashed a ton of stuff from all of the games I played.
Can you point to a specific game that inspired Zortch? And that is such a unique name. How did you come up with it? Was it Chex Quest inspired because of the weapons in that game are called Zortchers?
There were many inspirations, but in the end I just wanted an updated Doom. You know, something like what I expected Doom 3 was going to be back when it was announced. As for the name, I just used Google and found that Zortch was actually a real name. I thought it was a good, short, generic protagonist name and fit the sci-fi theme. Maybe it was subconsciously inspired by Chex Quest, but I really just wanted a long and silly sci-fi title like Buck Rogers in the 23rd and a half century. That is why the full title of my game is actually Zortch Maximum Against the Alien Brain Suckers.
So the Nintendo 64 version of Quake 2 is fresh in my mind because of the remaster that just came out, and I got a real Quake 2 64 vibe from your game. I, for one, am glad you didn't make a Doom clone, but since we're on the topic of remasters and clones, if you could see one game remastered, which game would it be?
I feel like most remasters nowadays just seem to mean a graphics update, so I'm not sure. I guess I'd rather see some true sequels to some of my favorites, and this might sound strange because they are not strictly FPS games, but I would love if there was a third Magic Carpet game, as the original two felt that they were never truly finished, and especially the second was so full of bugs. I just really love the attitude and style Bullfrog put in making these games, and we need more of that nowadays. I also think Shiny's Sacrifice would be absolutely amazing with today's graphical tech.
So what games are you playing right now? Any classic shooters?
Yeah, I tend to play just about every old FPS that I come across, but I just kinda got sick of them lately though. Because of this, the last game I played was Pikmin 4.
So if I may be so bold, I personally believe you sold yourself short by pricing Zortch at $5. If you don't mind me asking, why did you price the game so low? I've seen many games with way less content go for a lot more money on Steam.
I guess I just felt that games are always on sale and people wait for sales, so why bother trying for more money? For example, Resident Evil 4 is always about $4 on the Wii U shop every other week and then back to $40. I just figured there was no reason to bother having a higher price.
I see your point, but I do have to say for $5 your game feels like a bit of a steal. But anyways, let's go back to the gameplay for a minute. I was really impressed by the level design of Zortch, all of the secrets, blowing up the generators to open up optional areas, and just regular navigation felt fresh with every level. Have you designed levels before for other games? And do you study famous mappers like John Romero? Can you just share with us some insight to your mapping philosophy?
I've made plenty of 2D games before, and I have also studied plenty of maps, but in my opinion, it is not about studying, it is about iteration. You add something to the map, you play the map. If you don't like something, you remove it. Funnily enough, I think that is pretty much Romero's technique. It is also a must when fixing bugs. So in the end, I end up playing every map hundreds of times. I also follow the same iterative process for the game design as well.
I have a similar question regarding your enemy design decisions. One thing that always bugs me about throwback shooters is that many of the enemy designs just feel flat, but in Zortch, you have enemies that jump around, teleport, launch stuff at you, fly, and a whole host of other things. Did you have a design philosophy in mind when creating enemies, or did you just kind of wing it? You have so many enemies too, so good on you for giving us such variety.
Yeah, thanks. It's just pretty much the same design decisions you would have in a 2D game like Mario. Every enemy does something unique. Some shoot, some jump. I apply the same philosophy to 3D. As for variety, the enemies were made first. In a way, it was a practice for me to get better at making 3D characters. I originally was going to render them into sprites, but that felt like too much extra work. So almost all of them made it into the game, and that is why there is such variety.
Your answer sounds just so simple, but so many developers fail to do this, and their enemies just charge around or hold still in place shooting, so thank you for making something more dynamic. Did you have any designs that you were considering that did not make it into the game? And if so, can you please share one with us?
I will email you a few images you can put into the video, but yeah, I cut a few. An underwater spiky ball that would shoot at you, a large flying blue thing that would spit multiple bullets, and giant flying chattery teeth that would just go for it and nab at you. They just didn't work that well. I also wanted to have a tank boss, but it never got anywhere.
That was fun to see, thank you for sharing. Now that your game is out and has seen some success, what are you most proud of? And what is something you'd like to change or improve upon in either a future update of the game or your next project?
The fact that I managed to get it finished, I think now I will probably just refine things for future games, as I have a better idea now about what people want and what worked well and what didn't.
Any plans for multiplayer in future updates or projects?
I don't know. There are many problems with multiplayer. First, you need to plan the entire game around it, and that makes it much harder to experiment with new features. It also involves paying for a server, which I cannot afford, so I guess I could make a matchmaking server like the original Diablo 1 where the online is just peer-to-peer, but then I cannot guarantee that no one will hack the thing. Multiplayer coding is nothing but trouble. I also feel like in the end there are so many large multiplayer games that fail left and right, made by large companies, and yet there are hardly any players at all. I don't know. Maybe if I ever make an insane amount of money and be able to pay someone else to develop it, I will design a small multiplayer game just for fun.
Yeah, I guess all of that makes sense, for sure. So no multiplayer in the immediate future, but what about you? What is next for Zortch? Will we see a DLC or a new project? Will you make more boomer shooters or something else?
I have plans for many projects, but for now I'm trying to get an expansion pack together for Zortch. It will probably be a standalone one, depending on how big it will get.
Nice, it's awesome to hear for us fans that more content's on the way. Well, my last question for you is if you could make any game with a full team of developers, it doesn't have to be a shooter, what kind of game would you create?
I'm not sure. For me, the whole point is that I'm doing it on my own. At least the development part. Shout out to the testers. If I had a full team, I would want them to develop whatever they wanted, to be honest with you, and without the stress of executives and market research and player feedback.
Alright, well, Mutantleg, that's the end of my questions. I really appreciate your time, and thanks again for speaking with me. I love Zortch, and I can't wait to see what you bring to us in the future. So thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Alright, so there you have it, everybody. That was my interview with Mutantleg, who created Zortch, a really awesome throwback shooter, and as I've said multiple times, it's only $5, so please go support and check it out. I know the AI voice might not necessarily have that personal feel in the interview, but I'm really glad that I have this option because I do have other developers that have offered to do interviews if they can also just use it AI voice. So let me know in the comments what you guys thought about all of this, and depending if it gets good reception or not, I may or may not do more AI voice interviews in the future. As always, please like, share, subscribe, all of the various things that help grow a channel. I really appreciate your support, guys. Thank you so much. And it also helps motivate me to bring you more developer interviews because if I'm being honest, they're not exactly the most easiest content to do. It requires a lot of scheduling and setup time. And honestly, sometimes it's just hard to find people willing to give interviews. But if you're really enjoying it, I will keep trying to bring it. So please let me know in the comments below. All right, that's enough rambling from me. Thanks again, everybody. I'm SaltyOctopus, and I will see you next time. Happy fragging.